everybody, welcome back to another episode of NB Bass, and I'm your host, Donald Patterson, joining you again for part one of this week's show. As always, thanks go out to Fish Bomb Outfitters, Carrot Sticks Rods, Southern Yankee Baits, War Dog Lures, Northern Michigan Outfitters, Hooked on Canadian Angling, and most importantly, my wife and my son. Where to begin? Had a nice package arrive within the last week after FedEx deciding to lose a shipment of carrot sticks that were on their way to me. They finally got their act together and delivered the next shipment intact. So I'm happy to say that this weekend coming up for the final regular season New Brunswick Sport Fishing Association event in Woodstock, I have a new batch of carrot sticks rods that I'm going to be getting the opportunity to get out on the water and spend some time using, and hopefully they'll perform as well as they have so far in practice. And practice. I guess that's where my mind is going this week. I've had a couple discussions over the last little bit with some friends of mine about practice, or pre-fishing as it's commonly known, and the way some people do it, the way I personally think it should be done, or I guess there's a few different points of view on this. Everybody knows, the value of pre-fishing time, of practice time prior to a tournament. Water conditions change, weather conditions change, so there's no such thing as a perfect recipe for success. You can get out today and fish a body of water and just load the boat, and come Saturday, those fish may not be there. Excuse me. But at the same time, you need to have a certain amount of practice. Gives you a starting point, gives you some confidence going into the event. I personally think that a lot of people are making some mistakes on their pre-fish. This is just my opinion. Take it for what it's worth, right or wrong. I'm not a professional. I'm not Kevin Van Dam. I'm not Mike Iaconelli. But this is just from my own experience and what I've seen and heard from other people. Some guys go out and they will fish, and they will fish hard. And yes, it's a time to maybe explore new places. But what I see guys doing that kind of gets under my skin is they will go out, and it's different if you don't know a body of water and you're fishing hard on that body of water. You're fishing every spot that looks like it has potential to you. And yes, when you're learning a body of water, that's what you have to do. But when you have a substantial knowledge base on that body of water, and you know 99.9% sure where you intend to run on those bodies of water, to me, your best option is to go out without hooks, secure your baits to the line, and try and give bites. You're not looking to put a hook in a fish's mouth. You're not looking to sting up that spot. Just go out and see if they're there. They're going to bite that bait. It's not the hook that they bite. Obviously, if they knew the hook was there, they weren't going to bite it. So if you throw a bait secured to a line and they bite it, well, okay, there's fish there. Leave it alone. Don't sting them up. If you can do the same thing exploring new water. And I mean, everybody wants the pictures, everybody wants the full experience. But if you are taking what you're doing seriously and you don't want to potentially sting up that hole, now most people will tell you that the fish will bite again within a day or two. Yeah, that's probably true. But at the same time, if you have an alternative to making sure the fish are there without actually stinging them up and running the risk that they're not going to bite again in a few days' time, why wouldn't you take it? Why wouldn't you take it? And the other alternative, of course, which is a safer alternative for yourself and for the fish, if you're going to throw hooks, go barbless. Get into your body of water, get into your spots, pinch your barbs down, and throw barbless hooks. At least that way you shut the hook, it's a clean removal, the fish is out of the water a minimal amount of time. You're not dealing with a hook that's buried and going to cause the fish harm. You just in, out. Your priority is not to get the fish to the boat. That rod loads up, you're going to know, okay, there's a big one. You don't need to get that fish to the boat. Actually, it's better for you if you don't get that fish to the boat, because you're not going to burn that spot. Leave the fish as close to untouched as possible. Your electronics play a huge deal. Not everybody is as comfortable reading their electronics as others. So sometimes you can't just drive over a spot, watching your electronics, and say, okay, there's fish there, I don't need to touch this spot. As you become more comfortable with your electronics, they can become a huge asset in your practice sessions. Because you can roll over a spot or idle over a spot, watching your screens and say, okay, there's a cloud of bait fish, and right down there underneath them, there's those arcs, that's what I'm looking for. There's my fish. It's one of those things that, like I said, there's no perfect alternative. There's no perfect option to guarantee you the fish are going to be where you want them to be come tournament day. But at the same time, what's the good of going out and finding fish if the end result is that you burnt that spot and those fish aren't going to bite come tournament day? It doesn't do you one bit of good. So, for example, if you're a tube fisherman, if tubes are something you rely on, take a couple jigs that you're using in your tubes, cut the hook off. You still have the weight, you've still got the ring to tie to, throw your tubes in the water and see what happens. Get the bites. That's all you need to do is instigate the strikes. You'll know if the fish are there. And like I said, especially with smallmouth, I don't have the experience with largemouth. I don't have enough experience with largemouth to be able to say anything different. But especially with smallmouth, when they clamp down on a tube, they normally clamp down hard and they will hold on for a few seconds. Well, those few seconds are more than enough for you to know, okay, well, that's a rat, or, man, I got a good one. So if you can throw a hookless tube or any hookless bait into a hole and load that rod up solidly 2 or 3 times, the fish is going to let go eventually. You may even get it up to the side of the boat. Jason and I had it happen a few times in our last tournament where the fish were short striking and they were grabbing the tail of our bait and they were holding on, and we were getting them almost to the edge of the boat, and then they'd open their mouth and swim away. They were holding on tight enough, we thought we had a good hook set. But it's just because their jaws are so strong, when they clamp down, if they don't want to let go, they're not going to let go. You're not going to pull that tube or that bait out of their mouth. So, respect your resource. Respect other anglers. You're trying a spot. You say, okay, I know this spot, and this spot. I don't even have to look at them. I fished them for 20 years. This time of year, I know there's going to be fish there. I'm going to go find somewhere new. Well, those places that you're going to find somewhere new, you may not, you may be saying to yourself, oh, I doubt I'm going to fish these spots come tournament day. Oh, excuse me. But I want to try them anyway. Well, if you go and sting up that hole, or those holes, what you may be doing is burning a spot for one of your competitors. And I know, oh, it's competition. Yes, it is competition. But if I'm going to win, I want to win because I was able to put together a better bag of fish than everybody else on the water. I don't want to win because I have a decent bag, but I stung up the spots that everybody else is going to fish, and they couldn't get any bites. No, technically it's not cheating, but it's a pretty shady way of doing things. If you're going out and knowingly stinging up a spot that you think somebody else might fish, even though you know you have little or no intention of going to that spot come tournament day, why are you there? Or at the very least, why are you stinging it up? It's one of those things that, like I said, technically it's not cheating. Technically, as long as you're within a legal practice time, you're well within your right. But have respect for the resource and respect for your fellow competitors. Because that spot may be holding the fish that may give a brand new team their first podium. They may not beat you, but it may give a brand new team their first podium. And guess what? That first podium, that trophy, a lot of times that's the key to a new team having the drive to continue and stay in the sport. If you have new teams that are constantly getting their tails kicked and they never feel like they have a chance of being competitive, if you've got a series where you have teams that have been at it for years and they're very consistent and they're very, they're high caliber anglers and they have a 20, 25, 30 year knowledge base, well, it can be discouraging for a new team to see that all the time and to never feel like they can be competitive. A new team doesn't have to win. Don't get me wrong, they're not going to object if they do. But a new team doesn't have to win to get that drive to push harder, to try harder, to make sure that they're being competitive. So I guess what I'm saying is don't burn somebody else's spots. If you know where you're going, then that's great. If you have the knowledge base and you're confident, more power to you. That's something we all hope someday to achieve, that level of confidence, to achieve that level of knowledge that we can go into a spot and be that comfortable. But at the same time, new teams need that little push. And it doesn't matter, new team, old team. If you're going to win, win straight. Win it right. So, I feel like I've been umming and on and sewing and and a lot. It's just another one of those subjects where it can be a little bit touchy. Some guys will get defensive. Some guys don't bother pre-fishing at all. Everybody does things differently. But at the end of the day, my desire is to see the sport conducted fairly. So, respect the resource, respect your fellow competitors. Ladies and gentlemen, I have to wrap up part 1 of this week's show. I'll be back again later today with part 2. Thanks to Fish Bum Outfitters, Carrot Sticks Rods, Southern Yankee Baits, War Dog Lures, Northern Michigan Outfitters, Hooked on Canadian Angling. My wife, my son, set those hooks, keep those lines tight.